Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/JustNoMil. In today's episode, I don't think I've ever met anyone worse. How to handle guilt trips about moving states. My JNM lied about my dad my whole life. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. I don't think I've ever met anyone worse. Today I came home from an outing with a friend to find my husband who never cries, crying because his mom texted him that she no longer wants to have a relationship with him. This started because we disagreed regarding the recent Roe v. Wade policy, and I had recently told her that we don't agree and I would appreciate her respecting my boundaries of not messaging me about this any longer. She continued to message me from her husband's account, and I expressed that I would be blocking both accounts because she could not respect said boundary. She responded by telling her son that she was no longer interested in having a relationship with him. I've never met a more evil and vile human in my entire life. She is a Catholic woman that holds her faith to a high regard. I've never been more ashamed of someone who hides behind her religion as a shield for her narcissistic shitty behavior. Mom, I'm pro-life and every baby is precious. To prove my point, I'm gonna disown my son for having a different opinion. Son, sorry you don't value our relationship more than your opinion on Roe. Then son needs grief counseling BC she burned that bridge down. I have a very Catholic religious mother. We are no longer in speaking terms. She caused so much trauma that has taken so long to heal. Words of advice to your husband: you will overcome this. Things will get better. I would recommend a therapist. Someone who specializes on religious trauma. Thank you. This is great advice. We're in couples therapy and I would like for him to go alone too. I'll absolutely look for that specialty. Gosh, it's almost as if unconditional love weren't a primary teaching of the founder of her religion. So you advise her that you don't wish to discuss it as you both have different views. ML can't respect stop and continues, so you block her to get it to stop and to manipulate you to do what she wants. She lashes out and punishes her son by threatening to cut him off. I hope your DH can pushes her aside long enough to respond, sorry you feel like that, Mom. I thought you and I had a better relationship than that, but I guess I was mistaken. Better to find out now than before the grandkids arrive. Yep, this. She wants DH to run and beg for her attention, let her see how empty her threats are. Now he's a grown man with real love in his life. Sorry, I realized this post was rushed and not well written, but I was very angry, still am. I appreciate the thoughtful comments. I really do. Thank you, internet strangers, love. She is a Catholic woman that holds her faith to a high regard. I've never been more ashamed of someone who hides behind her religion as a shield for her narcissistic shitty behavior. If my ex had a brother, I would have, though we were sister-in-laws, lol. Using the silent treatment as blackmail is always a blessing in disguise. Oh no, an awful toxic piece of sh*t wants to give you a taste of how great life is without them. What a punishment! How to handle guilt trips about moving states. My fiancé and I are going to be moving to Colorado in May of next year. We currently live in Phoenix and are so excited about the change. However, I'm very worried about his mom. I know technically not my MIL yet, but she will be. Their family is extremely close and honestly, she's not a very nice person. She's downright rude most of the time. I could give countless examples, but basically, she's the type to judge/criticize every single thing you do, and is very blunt. She has absolutely no filter and refuses to install one. If she ever says something rude and people call her out on it and ask her to be nicer, she says that she's being controlled and censored. Whenever she says this, I want to respond, yeah, because adults are expected to censor their thoughts and not say everything that comes to mind, much like I'm doing now. Anyway, she has already started with the guilt tripping. Christmas is a huge deal to her, and she told us we would be expected to come home the week of Christmas every year and stay with them, so I guess I'll never have a Christmas morning with my family again? And I know that whenever we come back to visit, she's going to want us, mostly my fiancé, but we're a package deal, to stay with them. Again, this means either I don't get time with my family, or we have to do it separately. But honestly, the biggest thing I'm worried about is our future children. She has said multiple times it's really not cool that you guys are moving states right before having our grandbabies, so she already considers them her babies, lol. She's told us we would be expected to visit at least every other month. I really don't know how she expects us to be able to get that much time off work. She's decided that she's never moving again and will die in her current home. My mom, on the other hand, is scheming how to convince my stepdad to move with us in the future. Seriously, the differences in our mom's reactions has shown me how immature his mom is being. Mine offered to drive our U-Haul for us, his said she would fly out to visit once we were settled. I don't know. I guess I'm just looking for any advice people have on dealing with the constant guilt trips and criticism. My mom isn't like this at all, so it's really hard for me to adjust. How do you deal with your overbearing MILs without exploding on them? I feel like she's pushing me toward that, and I don't want to ruin our relationship, for my fiancé's sake. Help! D. We would be expected to come home the week of Christmas every year. This means either I don't get time with my family, or we have to do it separately. We would be expected to visit at least every other month. Your DH needs to start shutting her down, saying, "Mom, stop it. We haven't even moved, and you are attempting to dictate our schedules. Saeir and I will decide these sorts of things together once we have settled in." You're right. I'm more stressed about her reaction to the move than the move itself. One thing that can help you handle the guilt is to realize that this person doesn't care about your feelings or happiness, so don't feel obligated to worry about hers. There might be books in this sub's reading list that can help. Perhaps search out some books on guilt here or elsewhere. I hope you realize that Christmas and visits will go how you decide they go. From your wording, it seems you feel you have to obey her decrees. You don't have to take what is offered just because it is free. Those guilt trips can be rejected outright. You aren't going. Anything that is unreasonable and unsustainable is counterproductive to your mental health and relationship. You and your husband-to-be need to sit down and discuss this seriously before you marry and have children. Seriously. Does he actually plan to be there every holiday and every 2 months, etc., etc.? Does he see anything wrong with these plans? What do the two of you want to do? How about your own Christmases? You traveling with kids every year? He should be informing his mother that you and he will decide what holiday schedule you will have after you are settled in, and if she nags, she goes to the bottom of the list. Slow and steady. Deep breaths. I can tell you how it went with our move abroad. That was 6 years ago, and we now have 2 kids born abroad. Looking back, it was the best thing that could happen to us given the fact that my ILs are special and went apeshT crazy when our first was born. My husband knew his parents very well, and while we had intensive discussions if and how we should move, he informed them 2 months before he left the country. They were given no chance to include themselves in our key life decisions. First round of guilt trips came when we couldn't visit that often anymore. Every 6 to 8 and later every 10 to 12 weeks. We both had challenging jobs and my husband was studying on top. Shit hit the fan when our first was born. They told us before Elo was born that they're expecting us after 6 weeks and on our old visiting schedule. We ended up not being able to travel due to baby's health issues at the beginning and haven't done so up till today. Elo does fine now but still has severe motion sickness. It would be a pain for everybody. I am very happy she's so far away. She is awful when here, but would have been much more of a nightmare within 3.5 h of driving distance. Your MIL is doing more or less the same my ILs did. She's verbalizing her expectations, shooting requests. But listen to me carefully. You are on the driver's seat of your life. There is now law that you have to do what she demands. Make yourself free from this thought. And align with your husband. As soon as he does not fall for her manipulation, you're safe. And you have a say as well as your 50% of this marriage, so get an understanding what you want to do, for example rotated holidays for now. And you'll stay home and who wants to can join your Christmas once children are involved. And then just do it. Turn invitations down and tell her no. She can't force you. Speaking of grandchildren, postpartum is a MIL-free zone. You might consider getting rid of a guest room for a while and force hotels on everyone. Short visits, especially at the beginning. A bit of a distance for controlling folks like MIL helps a lot. I implore you to make your own Christmas traditions with your own nuclear family. Maybe invite grandparents on alternating years, maybe don't. Childhood memories are too precious to be spent catering to old ladies' demands. Treat every demand as if she has given a nice, polite suggestion. That way, you can respond as if it was. She demands every Christmas? It is nice of you to suggest your home for holiday gatherings. We'll let you know, or don't be silly MIL. It is a nice suggestion that we celebrate some of the future holidays together, but you can't really think we won't set our own traditions or meet my family of origin for some of them. That would be silly. She demands you visit? That is a suggestion we will give the consideration it deserves. We'll let you know if it works for us. I also like the 2 yes, 1 no approach. That way, you can always say I'll discuss it with spouse and let you know. If you need an answer right now, it is going to have to be no, because we make commitments together or not at all. Both of you say this, always. That means no triangulation, it means you always buy time out of a pressured situation, and the more she pushes, the more she gets told no, because yes is not an option unless you both say yes. MIL is an extremely unreasonable person making extremely unreasonable demands. You might think your challenge is to help MIL become a reasonable person who holds reasonable expectations. You would be wrong. Why? Because MIL is not ever going to improve. In all likelihood, she'll become more unreasonable and more demanding. Your actual challenge is to make sure both of you understand that you can't give in to unreasonable demands, and then have a plan on what boundaries you need to put in place and enforce. If either you or so think that you need to spend every Christmas with MIL, or spend half your life on the road visiting her every other month simply because she demands it, then I have bad news for you. Neither of you are ready to be married. She's talking, who said you have to listen? You're an adult, live your life. You want to stay with your parents when you visit, well then do it. One trip your people, next trip his people. You want to visit them, you don't want to visit then don't. No one has control over you unless you give them control. My JNM lied about my dad my whole life. So I've decided to post here because I have a lot of frustrations with my mom and it would be nice to vent. There's a lot of recent stuff where she has really let me down, and my lovely in-laws say she probably has depression, she won't be treated for it, and generally isn't well. I agree that this is the case, and she's probably had it on and off all my life. So I am always conflicted about whether or not I am being harsh on her / not understanding her depression. So feel free to tell me if I'm out of line. My mom and dad broke up before I 35F can remember. My mom brought me up, and I saw my dad every other weekend, and for holidays. He always called on the phone each week too, and I always felt very loved by him. He lived over 100 miles from me, but kept a second house in my town for my whole life till I moved just so we had somewhere to stay at weekends. He had more money than my mom, who didn't work till I was 16, and always made sure I had clothes and could go on school trips etc. I enjoyed my childhood with my mom. We were poor, as in, heating was a luxury to be rationed and food was all own brand. But we still had fun and she taught me to love art and be creative. For as long as I can remember, my mom prided herself on being honest with me about things. I think I was around 6 to 7 when I asked about her and my dad. Since then I've been told the same things over and over. My dad cheated on my mom with a woman from work who threw herself at him. Men can hardly keep it in their pants when sex is offered on a plate. He did this when my mom was pregnant with me. He refused to accept he was in the wrong. He left her when I was 2 weeks old and she was not recovered/struggled to look after me. About a year later he came back, but only for a short while, and then he left her for another woman, who he dated when I was a kid. I remember her and her son. Being told this all the time impacted how I felt about my dad. Mom would never let me slag him off. She prided herself on it. But knowing he was a cheat and a liar who left us made me angry and sad. And I respected him less. When my half-brother was born, I was 16. I met him at 2 weeks old and my stepmom said how helpful my gran had been. I retorted that she was lucky as my mom had done it all alone. Stepmom looked annoyed but didn't argue with me. I pitied her for how my dad probably lied about it. Later that year I changed my surname so I didn't have his. Mom said he only hung around in the hospital so his name was on the certificate, and he'd even left to see the other woman while she was in labor. As an adult, I was told a few throwaway comments about my childhood from family that implied my dad hadn't left me at 2 weeks old. To be honest, it felt like it was all so long ago and I didn't seek clarification. By this point, I knew my mom twisted the truth a lot, and I loved my dad regardless of how he behaved 30+ years ago. Then my gran died recently and I was given letters she had saved. They were written by my mom to my great-grandfather, Gran's dad. She kept him posted on my life, and for the first 30-ish months it was always what her and dad had been doing, and he added a postscript to the letters. Seems very much like they were together. I asked family a bit more, and I'm convinced that while he might have left for a night or two if they had a fight, he didn't just up and leave us at all until I was at least 2. I haven't confronted her because it's not worth it. But I feel very hurt that the information she gave me resulted in so much resentment for my dad during my teens, and I regret changing my name. I changed it again when I got married, so I can't undo that. I don't know, what with her having depression, if my anger towards her is unfair. She was trying to process her relationship, and I think over the years she really came to believe what she told me. She was deeply resentful that dad wasn't a full-time parent, which made him able to earn more money, and she has to be a single mom, although once she forgot that narrative and told me she decided not to go back to work because she wanted to make sure she spent all her time with me. She told me repeatedly that my dad was selfish and that's why he was successful. And when we argued, menopause and puberty at the same time was hard, she would say I was selfish just like him. I've always tried to be empathetic, and I'm a total people pleaser as a result. Anyway, am I wrong for feeling so resentful? Thanks for reading what was supposed to be one paragraph. Edit: I didn't expect this many comments, but they have been so helpful to me. A lot of people suggested talking to my dad, and I'm going to do that when I next see him. Not to accuse him, but just to talk about what happened and make sure he knows what I was told and that I love him and know he was always there for me. And apologize for dropping his name, because recently my stepmom told me it had upset them both when it happened, although they didn't say so at the time. Your mom lied to you your entire life. She practiced parental alienation. And now you are here defending her and giving her reasons as to why she did that. Why are you defending someone who made you hate your father? Why are you giving us excuses when you won't even talk to her because it won't do anything? Think about it. Oh, and depression does not make you a bad parent or a liar. Because someone who makes a child hate their own father is a bad parent. Okay, OP, 2 things. 1. Your mom having depression doesn't mean that lying to you was ever okay. She destroyed your trust in her, and for what? So you'd want to be around her more. And 2. Ask your dad why he didn't stay. If I had to hazard a guess, it's because she was lying and he found out, or quite possibly she was the one who cheated, since that was the narrative for so long. I agree. Ask your dad what happened. She sounds so manipulative with a bit of martyr thrown in. I've kept the same friends my entire life, but because she's a single mom, she lost hers. Heat rationing, yet she doesn't work? Oh my, look at the sacrifices she made for you and feel the weight of how much you are costing. She didn't have to work until you were 16, plus your dad maintained another place just to spend time with you. JFC. She's got her narrative and excuses down pat, but they really don't make sense. What was she doing while you were in school all day? Pining away for you but consistently biting the hand that fed you both. Your dad had to work hard to support several households, she denigrates him with her hand out. I don't like people that wear their sacrifice as parents as some badge of honor. I'm sorry you were raised this way, and it sounds like everything is everyone else's fault, including yours, and that your mom takes no ownership. She could have a myriad of personality disorders, and she's still an AH for her many lies. I'm sorry if your mom is depressed, but that doesn't give her the right to lie and to hurt people. Letting her get away with her lies unchallenged isn't going to help her. It's not your job to cater to her feelings. Your feelings are just as important as hers. I'm not saying you should go and yell and scream at her. That won't help. But you can acknowledge the truth and feel your own feelings. Being angry when someone lies to you does not make you a bad person. I've been depressed for all of my adult life, sometimes needing hospitalization. But I've never lost my moral compass such that I would deceive my kid the way your mother did you. Depression is not a get-out-of-free card. You're getting a lot of good advice here, I think. I wish you well. I think you should let your dad know what your mom told you about their relationship and his treatment of her when he actually left her. Did he really cheat, etc.? Until you do, you don't know the truth of this at all. I don't think you can blame your JNM's depression for making her lie about your dad. She wanted to drive a wedge between you so she could make sure she spent all her time with me. You're right, and I'm going to do this. This right here. Mental health problems are not your fault, but they are your responsibility. Having depression doesn't give anyone carte blanche to lie or demean others for selfish gain. I feel this in my bones. My mom and dad had the most unhealthy, volatile relationship until they divorced when I was 4 years old. My mother said the most atrocious things about him my entire childhood, and he leaned on that as a way of manipulatively garnering sympathy from us kids, younger bro and I. Only later, from other family members and conflicting stories, did I learn that my mom had exaggerated or concocted certain stories as a way to villainize my father. I can't blame her, though. My father was slashed as a textbook, deadbeat dad, and pathological liar. What is important to understand is that a person's perspective is their reality. Whereas your father may have been around a lot longer than your mom originally indicated, in her mind, he may never really have been there. Does that make sense? There are 3 sides to every story: his, hers, and the truth. I don't think you'll ever really get the truth from either of your parents. Instead, it may be better to understand that each of their stories will always be skewed in an effort to make them look like the victim in the situation. It sounds like you were used as a pawn by your mother because your mother did everything she could establish an ally for herself and an adversary against your father. I don't know if confronting your mother is worth it. Even if you catch her in a lie, her first instinct will be to justify it by recalling other hurtful actions/events. Going forward, you may just want to change the subject when your father comes up, knowing that the story may stray from the truth. With your father, meeting with him and explaining that you may have had the wrong impression will help to mend a fractured relationship moving forward. Note: resist the urge to tell your mother that you're seeking a more honest relationship with him. You'll only know how each of them really feels if you, God forbid, have a child with a person who turns out to disappoint/deceive/abandon you. I hope you'll never know how that feels. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.